The following review is in 3D. See how close it is? See it? Do you feel the hammer? This is 3D! I did not see a 3D screening of Thor 2. However, if you did, you got to see a 5-minute sneak peek of Captain America the Winter Soldier. Let me know what you thought of that, because I want to know if it looks awesome. I have to say that I was a little bit let down by Thor the Dark World. It is a really good summer blockbuster movie, but it's been the kind of year where there's been so many summer blockbusters and they're all about the same level, and it's like a little exhausting. Just a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about what this movie does well individually. First, the action scenes are bigger, because Thor gets to use his powers more, and that means all kinds of stuff like flying around and throwing his hammer more, and it's just like, yes! There's a lot of cool action beats. Although, I'll be honest, there's some of the action I kind of forgot. Like, after I seen the movie, I was like, wait, how many fights were there? I couldn't remember one of them, even though I remember thinking something cool about that scene later. I was like, oh, so there are memorable action beats in every action scene. They're not great themselves. Like, there's, like, ships shooting at stuff, and it kind of reminds me of Star Wars. I thought that was cool how they had ships shooting at stuff, like, in Star Wars, and they had stuff shooting back. It's like, they're, like, aiming the blasters at them. It's like, yeah, that's cool. And there's all kinds of, like, bigger action scenes, and Heimdall attacks a ship, and it's like, that is awesome. Idris Elba's Heimdall is one of the bright spots of this movie. He's excellent in this movie. He really stood out, but he's only in there a little bit. Like, it feels like he's in it less than he was in the first one, which I'll know, like, what the fact is of the screen time in this one versus the screen time in that one. But it felt like whenever he disappeared, I felt like a gap in my heart, because he's just so cool. I mean, you watch him in Pacific Rim, you know he's just an awesome guy, and he really fills up the screen with awesomeness. So let's finish the action. Okay, and as with the other action, the first action scene is solid, and the second action scene is solid, and I don't count the action scene, the part where the Dark Elves fight at the beginning. That's a very typical thing. So we'll just get past that. And then, you know, later on, the fights towards the end, where, like, there's a fight on the planet where the Dark Elves are at, and it's just awesome. And there's, like, a world-hopping fight that's just a big fight in the climax, and it was excellent. It was built up to really well. I felt, like, emotionally, like, what I was supposed to feel, like I was rooting against Malekith. I'm like, you have to stop him, Thor. And I thought it was really cool how Jane helps him fight Malekith, because, you know, the damsel in distress thing is played a little bit in this movie, but they play it creatively. The action scenes were awesome, basically, and the only problem I had with the action scenes are that it's the same year that Man of Steel came out, and they both have similar styles, as far as, like, they're both big, large-in-life characters, like him and Thor, Superman and Thor, and they just, like, go crazy with their powers, and that's really cool to watch, but in the same year, in, like, ships fights, you know, it's like, they're similar, and that kept me from being as wild as I would have been if this had came out first. But it's not this movie's fault that it came out second. I'm just saying that these two films are so similar, it bothered me a little bit in my mind. But still, it was a cool movie. The action was excellent. One of the stronger points of the movie. Another strong point of the movie is the humor. Kat Dennings is hilarious. Chris O'Dowd shows he is in this movie, and he is so funny. I thought in the part he had, but it could have come out easily. You could have saved some screen time here and there. And I feel like they rushed a lot of things in the story department, because, like, the humor, they have Kat Dennings, she's funny, they have Chris O'Dowd, he's funny, they have Natalie Portman says a few funny things, but mainly Thor has some really funny things, and even Loki has some funny things that they play off the humor really well. The stories are really kind of rushed, but it's kind of a good thing, because there's a lot of typical things in this plot that they rush over, like the Stonehenge stuff. It's like, you've seen that kind of storyline a million times. I feel like rushing through that was a smart thing, but sometimes they rush through a lot more than I wanted to. I wanted to experience a bit more of this universe, but it was still entertaining. It's just that the plot's not very. It just doesn't feel as well conceived as it could be. It's like, I don't know. There's something about the MCU Phase 2 movies. They're all strong on humor and action, and they're really fun. But it feels like they're being constrained, like Disney or Marvel, whichever one. I mean, like, Marvel is telling them, you can't take any risks here. We can't take any big risks. We're not going to piss off all the fans, because we have a $1 billion franchise now. We have to keep making $1 billion now. You know, so, I mean, they took a big risk. You could say a big risk by changing the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, but that's actually avoiding it from being a darker film, like the Mandarin that they showed in commercials versus the one that's in the movie was a lot darker, and they were scared to go dark because that might upset the fans. In this movie, you can kind of feel some of the constraint. Same time, it is a good time. They do succeed at what they're trying to be. It's just that it's a little bit underwhelming when you get the second straight B+ movie from Marvel. after you saw Avengers, and it was like, the main problem with this movie is the fact that Malekith, they break a screenwriting rule when it comes to Malekith's character. I've only taken one English class that talks about screenwriting so far, and the first thing they mentioned was subtext. And it means you mean something other than you say. Malekith has no subtext. He says exactly what he means. He is evil as he appears. He has no motivation. He just wants to make the world dark, and that's it, damn. I mean, I root against him because of the things they did. Like, I emotionally root against him, but not like, it makes sense. It's just like, you root against this guy, you don't like him, they don't develop him well because they're developing Loki way more than him, which, that's the problem I have with this movie too, is the fact that Loki is so awesome as a villain, and then you have this villain as the next villain, and he's not as good. But, I mean, he might have been if they had developed him more, but they chose Loki over him to develop more, and Loki is an excellent villain. Tom Hiddleston nails it as Loki again. And it's just, I mean, that's awesome, but guess what? You need new villains. You need new villains to steal the screen, to make another opposing threat to, like, the Avengers and to Thor, other than just Loki. That will, steal the screen. I want to see that, I mean, I enjoy Loki's character, but I'm just scared that they're getting too obsessed with Loki because, I mean, yes, Loki is cool. He's a good villain, and it's interesting because you really believe he's innocent all the time, but he's always evil. But, I mean, you just never know what he's going to do. You never know which side of him you're getting. But it just feels like they're more obsessed with him than they are with developing new villains, and that stinks because you can make, if you want to make each movie better, you have an excellent villain come in and just steal the show when he's on screen, and then Loki steals the show when he's on screen. But the problem is there's so many things going on in this movie that they're like, here's the villain, here's the Loki part of the movie, here's the Thor part of the movie. We don't have enough time for the villain any further. So, basically, the problem with Thor 2 is just that it doesn't strive for more. It could have reached a little bit further. It could have been more meaningful. Or it could have just been as much fun as the first one. It wasn't as much fun as the first one, in my opinion. But that's because I preferred getting to know Thor and just getting to have fun in the universe that they set up in the first one. This feels like a totally different film, but it is a very exciting film. It's action-packed. It will satisfy Marvel fanboys. I like Marvel and DC, so don't expect me to just love one or the other, because that's not happening. And there's, of course, 2 post-credit scenes. One is kind of overly long and has a funny joke at the very end, which is the very last one, and then the other one is a big reference to Guardians of the Galaxy and the future of the MCU. I give this, you want to know how I'd rate this movie? I give this movie 3.75 hammers out of 5 hammers. It's chocolate chip. I would say it's McDonald's with 3/4 of a chocolate chip cookie cake.